Okay, the only problems you're going to do on your own today are on the back of this sheet. This is weird, okay? If you need help, you can come back to my desk and ask me. It says V equals 1/3 BH. We have to write an equation for H. So you're going to, what that means is you get H equals. So here's my H, okay? I'm going to make a wall on the H side. Now I'm going to put dots here. And there's two of them, so I circle that whole thing, okay? So I don't have to add or subtract here. I go straight to my division. And remember, I want the H, so don't put the H under the line. You're going to put the other two under the line. So you're going to put 1/3 and B. And over here, you're going to put 1/3 and B. So those cancel, and now H is by itself, but what do I do with this? Well, here's what you're going to do. When you have a fraction on the bottom, you're going to get rid of the bottom and bring that number to the top. Okay? And over here, I'm going to take 3 divided by 1, which is 3. So you're going to put 3 on top, because 3 divided by 1 is 3. And you're going to put V on top and B on bottom, because you don't know what V and B are. Okay? And that's your answer. H equals 3 times V divided by B, whatever numbers V would be and B would be. Write an equation for M. So go find the side that M's on. There's the wall. And M is being multiplied by both of these. So I dot and circle, but now there's 2 dots. So you got to put 2 things under your dividing line. Not the M, because that's the one I want by itself. I'm going to put 1/4 and N. 1/4 and N. So those cancel, and now M is by itself. Now over here, once again, you're going to bring the cross of 4 out, and you can bring, it's called reciprocating, okay? So if you're dividing by 1/4, you can get rid of the 4, put it on top. Now I make my line. 4 divided by 1 is 4. So 4 goes on top, and X goes on top, N goes on bottom. So M is equal to 4 times X divided by N. Write an equation for D, okay? So go find the side the D's on. It's all multiplication, so you're going to circle that whole thing, okay? Divide, divide. Now remember, we want the D by itself, so you keep the D where it's at, then you put 1/8 and C underneath it. And 1/8 and C underneath that. Cross those out. And now D is by itself, but I got to simplify over here. You bring cross the 8 out, bring it to the top, and I divide 8 by 1, and that's 8. And then M is right beside the 8, but C is under it, so you make a line and put C. D equals 8 times M divided by C. Now write an equation for Z. So Z's on this side, make your wall. And you actually have 2 dots over here, so you're going to circle the whole thing, and you're going to underline. And you're going to put everything but the Z, okay? 1/2 Y. 1/2 Y. Don't put the Z underline. You want the Z over here by itself, okay? So you can cross those out. Now, when I got the half on the bottom, we need to cross out the 2, and that goes on top. So what's 2 divided by 1? That would be 2. So you're going to put 2 on top, always on top. Then you're going to have X on top, but Y on the bottom. So Z is equal to 2 times X divided by Y. Okay, pause the video and work on the problems on the back. You got a question, let me know. Okay, now this is going to be a review for a test later this week. It's proportions and ratios. Solve for the X variable. Well, nothing's really happening to the X up there, so I can just cross multiply and divide. I'm going to take 9 times 25 divided by 2. and I got 112.5. Okay, now here it's not that easy, okay, because things are happening to the x. So I use my A, B, C, and D. So I line up my equation. Remember, A and B are diagonals, so A and B, A is multiplied by B here, and C is multiplied by D here. So A is 3, B is the expression x minus 4, C is 2, and D is the expression 3x plus 4. Now put 1's in front of your x, that's a 1x, that's a 3x, get that minus into a plus negative. So I line up my equals. Now there's 3 numbers here, so I have to do the rainbows from the 3. Do your x first. 3 times 1x is 3x. And 3 times negative 4 is negative 12. Now over here from the 2. 2 times 3x is 6x. 2 times 4 is 8. Alright, so I've got 2 x's, so I can't do the wall yet. So here's my smaller x. We're going to put 3x, 3x, and if it's positive up there, we need to minus it, so it goes to 0. Line up the equals. You have negative 12 here. 6 minus 3 is 3x, and then plus 8. Now I can do the dot, circle, and the wall. Remember, don't dot the 8 because there's a plus sign there. The assignment you just got done with, there was nothing, no signs, so they were all multiplication. So take your 8 to a 0. It's positive, so we minus. I'm going to line up the equals here because I'm running out of room. So over here, you got 3 times x, and over on the other side, we take negative 12 minus 8, and that's negative 20. Now the last thing I do is to divide by the factor of 3, because I want the x by itself. So negative 20 divided by 3 is negative 6.6 repeating. So I'm fine with a decimal like that. Okay, what is 63% of 150? So it's the percent over 100%, and then is over of. So the percent you have is 63. Then after of, you see 150, so that's your of, and you're finding x. So I cross multiply and divide. I take 63 times 150 divided by 100. Okay, I got 94.5. Now don't put a percent sign on that. When the number's over here, you don't put a percent sign. That's your answer. Okay, next one. 150% of what number is 34? Okay, so one of them has a percent, so I have 150%, and after of, it says the word what. That means I don't know the of, it's x. Then is 34. Then I cross multiply, 100 times 34 divided by 150, and I find my answer. Okay, I got 22.6 repeating. Don't put a percent sign that. When the x is in the is of, it's just a number. Okay, what percent of 32 is 40? Neither one of these have percents, so x is the percent this time, and then of, you got 32, and you got 40. So, to solve for x, you have to cross multiply and divide. 100 times 40 divided by 32. That's how you punch it into your calculator. Any other way is not going to be right. So it's 125. Now this time it was x percent, so it's 125%. Okay, triangles. You did these last Friday. You gotta solve for x. The triangles are similar. So I look at the triangle with the x. There's a 5 with it. X over 5. You can also go 5 over x. It doesn't matter. But X is similar to 18, so across from X you got 18, and across from 5 you got 7.5. Then you cross multiply and divide. You're going to be taking 5 times 18 divided by 7.5. You multiply first. Okay, I got 12. So that's how long side X is, 12. 5, 7.5, 12, 18 makes sense. That triangle's bigger, so every side's going to be longer. Okay, convert 45 pounds to ounces. Now, this is your ratio here. You got 16 ounces, 1 pound. Now over here you line up the labels the same. So we got a 45 pounds, and I'm trying to figure out how many ounces go with 45 pounds. So that leads me to multiplying 16 times 45 divided by 1. 720. So X equals 720 ounces. That's how many ounces I get out of 45 pounds, given the fact that 16 ounces is 1 pound. Okay, number 8. In the first 4 games of the season, a soccer team scored 10 goals. If this trend continues, how many goals will the team score in the remaining 18 games of the season? So these zeros up at the top, since there's not a number right there, it's 0. That gives you the green light to set up your proportions. Proportions means I'm going to cross multiply and divide. Now fill out the rest of your table. You're going to put 4 for games, 10 goals. You're going to put 18 games, X goals. Now there's not a time unit, okay? There's not a time unit, so since there's no time unit, it doesn't matter what goes on top, what goes on bottom. So games, goals. Games, goals. So 4 games, we scored 10 goals. That's the complete ratio right there, okay? We're going to play 18 games, X goals. So I cross multiply and divide. I take 10 times 18 divided by 4. I got 45. So X equals 45. So we're going to score 45 goals in those 18 games, if this is any indication. Okay, now the next one's confusing. Number 9. I can paint underline figurines in minutes, so it should be underlined for you. I can paint 3 figurines in 20 minutes. My friend can paint 1 figurine in 10 minutes. How long will it take us to paint 12 figurines working together? Okay, sorry I didn't fill these out. If you work for 0 minutes, you're not going to get any figurines painted, and neither will my friend. So those zeros at the beginning, if I have nothing but zeros at the beginning, okay, the time always starts at 0. But if the other one is 0, that gives me the go-ahead for proportions. Now, since there are 2 tables, we're going to add another proportion over here, okay, because I see 2 tables. Last problem, I just saw 1, so I just made it like this. But I have to add this because there's another ratio. So 3 figurines, put that under figurines, 20 minutes. 1 figurine, 10 minutes. How long will it take us to paint 12 figurines working together? Now, you don't put 12 in either table because that's when you're together. These tables are separate, okay? Now, you got to put your time on the bottom. If you have time, it goes on the bottom. So, 20 minutes, 3 figurines. 10 minutes, 1 figurine. And then I put 12 figurines. Don't put 12 on the bottom because bottom's for minutes, okay? I don't have the minutes for the 12 figurines, so it's 12 over X. Remember, 12, 3, and 1 are all figurines. They should all line up across from each other. 20, 10, and X are all minutes. Okay? What do you do from there? Well, you line up your equals, and you're still going to have 12 over X on this side. On the other side, we got to add the fractions together, adding them, because they're working together. So I go 3 ABC 20 plus 1 ABC 10. Gives me 1/4. So 1/4. So again, when I add these, that becomes 1/4 equals 12 over X. So I take 4 times 12 and divide that product by 1. 4 times 12 is 48, divided by 1 is 48. So it'll take 48 minutes. Okay, next problem. 2 cars travel for the same amount of time. Actually, no, I'm out of order. Okay, let's go to this one. A racer has completed 6% of his race. Put up, I should write part right there and put part right here. Okay, I forgot to do that. So racer has completed 5% of his race. He has completed 10 laps. How many laps does a race have? 100%, 5%. Now it says part. Put part over total. Now define the part by what I've circled. He has completed that part of the race. Now how much has he completed? 10 laps. So I know that. 10 goes here. What I don't know is how many total laps a race has. So X. So I cross multiply and divide. 100 times 10 divided by 5. 200. So it has 200 total laps. Okay, so again, when I say part, you put total under it, okay? And then define the part so you know what the part's talking about. Has completed. How much has he completed? 10 laps. 10 I know. Okay, number 11. 4/7 of the animals in the part were birds. Remember, a fraction of percent are just written differently. It's still part of a whole. So 4 is the part that were birds. 7 is the total. If there were 200 birds, how many animals were there? So instead of 100%, you're going to put 4/7, okay? Because instead of a percent, it's a fraction. So part. Part's on top, total's on the bottom. Now label the part with what I've circled. Were birds. How many birds do I have? You know that as well, okay? You know it's 200. And the total, okay, I don't have, so I put X. So I cross multiply and divide. 7 times 200 divided by 4. Now, if you don't know how many were birds, you put X here, and then you're going to have a number to actually put for your total. So 7 times 200 divided by 4, 350. 350 animals. How many animals? We found 350. Now, 4/7 of those animals were birds. How many were birds? 200. Okay, number 12. A watch that used to cost $89.99 is marked up in price by 12%. Find the price of the watch after it's marked up. Now, it's an addition of a percent, up because it's added. So when you're doing these adding and subtracting percents, percent increases and decreases, you use before times percent equals after. So it's a totally different ball game than just going to the proportions. So I line those up, and I have before times percent equals after. Now the percent, you're going to have to take 100%, and you're going to mark it up 12%. That means add 12% onto it. So that's 112%. Move the decimal twice to the left, and the percent is 1.12, 1.12. Now I have after circled. I don't know how much it was after, so that's X. And then before, since it used to cost $89.99, that's the before amount. And I can then just multiply these. So $89.99 times 1.12. Now you're talking money amounts here, so we just want two numbers after the decimal, $100.78. It would actually go to 79 cents, but I'm not going to nitpick if your rounding isn't exact. So it's going to cost $101.79 after they mark it up, which makes sense, okay? So again, those part problems are proportions, part over total, percent, 100. Part over total. Fraction, you just use the fraction. But when I have like up or increase and decrease, we're going to use before times percent equals after. It's a real easy equation to remember. Before times percent equals after. Okay, and then the final problem. Two cars travel for the same amount of time. The first car travels 80 miles per hour. The second car travels 75 miles per hour. If the faster car travels 45 miles further, find the distance traveled by each car. Now, when you see time, distance, and speed up here, you're going to make that table. It has 2 rows with 4 columns. Here you just put fast and slow. It's the fast-slow table. So speed, distance, and time. All right, the speed, miles per hour, you got 80 and you got 75. So 80 is fast, 75 is known as slow. Get rid of those. Now the distance, we don't know the distance. We know the faster car travels 45 miles further, but we don't know how many miles either car ended at. So X and X, but we know the faster car ended up 45 miles further, so I need to add 45 to that X. Even though I don't know what X is, I add 45. Get rid of that. And now there's no more numbers, so you have to use your time equals distance divided by speed. It's up there too. So I take my distance, x plus 45, because I don't know the distance, but I use the expression I've written to represent the distance, and then 80 on bottom. Distance here is x, just an expression, and then I know my actual speed is 75. Okay, now the same amount of time means these are equal, okay? So we make a proportion. I got x plus 45 over 80. And then we have x over 75. So am I in a position to just cross multiply and divide? No, you're not. There's 2 x's. So you're going to use your A, B, C, D method from problem number 2. So I line up my equals. I put 2 parentheses on each side. And I'm going to take A times B equals C times D. So A is x plus 45, the expression. B, 75. C is x. D is 80. Put 1s in front of the x's. You don't have to have any minus signs you have to change, so that's good. There's 3 numbers on this side, but just 2 over here. So the one that has 2, you need to just multiply 1 by 80, but remember to put an x on the product because 1 has an x. Now over here I'm distributing 75 because there's 3 numbers. So I take 75 times 1x, which would be 75x. And then I take 45 times 75, which is 3,375. Okay, I can't make my wall yet because there's 2 x's. So I mark the smaller one and get that out of there. So I put 75x, 75x. It is positive up there, so we need to minus. Line up your equals. That's going to give you 5x on that side. And then we have 3,375 on this side. Now I can do my wall. Now I can dot and circle, but I don't have anything over there I have to add or subtract. I just need to divide. X is just being multiplied by 5, so I do the opposite of times 5, which is divide by 5. And I take 3,375 divided by 5, and that's 675. So there's your first answer. Now the other car just went 45 miles further. X is 675, and then I take 675 and add 45 to find the distance the other car traveled. 720.